Almost 20 years have passed since Amichai Zichrono Levracha was a Talmud in our yeshiva. But the Demusta Yukno of Amichai standing in the corner, davening, wrapped in tefillin, wrapped in deep devotion, kavana, remains etched in my mind. Chaim Brisker explains that tefillah requires not only the articulation of the words of Shemona Esrei, but it also requires a special kavanah that we are lifnei Hashem, that we are talking to the Ribono Shel Olam and communicating and developing a kesher, a chibur with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And those who were zocheh to daven together with Amichai, even B'mei Bachruso, felt inspired by his davening, by his sense of communicating to the Ribono Shel Olam, by his regesh, by his emotional embrace and feelings that were displayed on his face. Yesterday we read the parsha of Baloscha. The Torah speaks about the Misonin, those who complained, despite all the Chazdei Hashem, they were in Makir Tov. Vayi Ha'om ki Misonim Ra. And Rashi explains, Misonim is that they motzu alila. They found an excuse. Heyach lifrosh me'achari ha'makom. How to estrange themselves, to distance themselves from the Ribono Shel Olam. And the Siva Shalom is Masbir, that was the Shoresh, that was the essence of their Aveira. They didn't want the Chibur with the Ribono Shel Olam. They didn't want to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Greet, Me'achari HaMokom, from the Ribono Shel Olam. And the Siva Shalom says that is the Yesod of an Aveira. A mitzvah brings us closer to the Ribono Shel Olam. And Aveira is designed to mirachik ourselves, chasu chalila, from Hashem. And in such manner, the Siva Shalom quotes a verse from the Magid Mezrish. The Gemara in Shabbos Daf Lamed Aleph records Hillel's famous statement to a prospective ger who wants the entire Torah summarized in one pithy statement. And Hillel says, Da'alach desani lechavrecha los avid. And the simple meaning is that which you don't want to done yourself, that which you detest, you should not do to your chaver. But the Magen Rezich played on this phrase and interpreted it in a different fashion. Da'alach desani lechavrecha, that which prevents chibur with the Ribono Shel Olam, that which constrains a kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Also, that act, that deed, lo savid. Hillel is giving hadracha to this prospective ger that the yesod of Yiddishkeit is to act in a way which brings chibur with the Ribono Shel Olam, and not to chasu chalila, to distance ourselves from the Ribono Shel Olam. And that was the yesod. That was the underlying basis of the Aveira, the Misonim. In fact, the Torah states the argument of the Misonim, their own self-understanding. Va'ata nafshenu yevesha. Our neshamas are dry. We have no feeling. We are bereft of regesh. We don't recognize Hashgachas Hashem. Connecting to the Ribono Shel Olam has no meaning to us. We are nafshenu yevesha. We are dry neshamas. And therefore, they were misonim ra lifnei Hashem. Yisrael Amichai, Zichrono Levracha, was just the opposite. His nefesh was warm, full of passion, full of emotional embrace of the Ribono Shel Olam. And this was displayed, as I mentioned before, in his exquisite, inspiring davening. but it was also demonstrated in all areas of life. His kesher with his rebellion, his kesher with his chaverim, his sensitivity, his refined conduct was always one full of warmth. Just the opposite of a nefesh yavesha. And in his chasodim, in his activities, in Hatzalah, there was no gvul, there was no limit to how Amichai felt for others, the depth of his concern, of his sensitivity, the refinement of his conduct, the passion for Yiddishkeit, the warmth of his personality. All was just the opposite of a nefesh yavesh. It was a nefesh of warmth, full of life, of passion, of enthusiasm for the Ribono Shalom. And in fact, his life was one which was typified by a chibur with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara in Brachos tells us on the Yuzayin that Olam Haba Sadikim Yoshvin Vatroseim Berosheim V'nenin Miziv Hashchina. The ultimate chibur with the Ribono Shalom is in Olam HaNeshamas. Amichai, there is no question that he is counted amongst those who was Sadikim Yoshvin Vatroseim Berosheim, and he's Nenem Miziv Hashchina. We all miss him, but we know that the Ribono Shalom, his presence, is hovering over him. He is Zichro Baruch.
One of the pillars of our minyan is Rabbi Chayat. He is the chacham that everybody turns to in the minyan when they have a she'elah, shia, question of halacha, or even for advice. And he has been there for the family in our time of need, and Baruch Hashem, should continue to be there for in our times of need for unfortunate things and also for the happy things in life, where he has taught Yosef, Yaakov, and Yosef for their bar mitzvot and many of the other boys in the Kehillah. And we owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude. And most importantly, he was a good friend of Yisrael Amichai, and we ask him to say a short Dvar Torah.
In yesterday's parasha, so of course the parasha starts with Ha'alotechat and Erot, starts with the menorah. And oftentimes when we talk about the menorah and what it's doing over here and what we're learning about, it always seems to hark back to the parasha before. The Nesiim, the menorah. The Kohanim, the Nesiim, the menorah. On Chanukah, we read the Ha'alotechat for Chanukah, the menorah. But I want to explore what's it doing in Ba'alotecha? What's it doing in the rest of the parasha? We don't read it in Naso. That's not where we read it. That's not where we break it. And it's true, Naso is already long enough, but still, we put it in Ba'alotecha. What's it doing in this parasha? So if you look in the parasha, really, if you think about it, if you look back in a longer perspective of the Torah, we had Sefer Shemot, the whole story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of Shibud Mitzrayim, Yetziat Mitzrayim, Matan Torah. Then we have Sefer Vayikra, which is really a lot of halachot. Succinctly, if you want to put it that way, a little bit of story, but really halachot. And by Midbar, the introduction were halachot. When we get to Ba'alotcha, we already go back to stories. We go back to stories. And what are the stories? The stories is Vayis'u mehar Hashem. Vayis'u mehar Hashem. They left Har Hashem. They left Har Sinai. They now move beyond Matan Torah. We had Matan Torah as an extension, we have the Mishkan, Torat Kohanim, all of that is all part of Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, Ma'amad Har Sinai, which is really the culmination of Yetziat Mitzrayim, and now we move beyond that, beyond Ma'amad Har Sinai, beyond Matan Torah, Vayis'u mehar Hashem, they left Har Hashem. And the Torah tells us a bit, we'll come back to it in a moment, but the Torah tells us a bit how to prepare for such a thing, and how to deal with such a thing. We have in the middle of the parasha, V'hi so Haron v'yomer Moshe, that when the Aaron would travel, Moshe would say, "Kum Hashem yefutz levecha." When the Aaron would rest, what Moshe Rabbeinu would say, and Chazal already tell us in Shabbat of Tetzayin that those two psukim are sort of set apart from everything else with backwards nuns. Why? The Gemara says one opinion is this is not really the place for V'hi so Haron. It's not the right place to write. This really should have been when they were the Galim, when they were setting up the camp. But the reason the Torah told us was l'hafsik ben pur anut lepur anut. to distinguish, to make a separation between one Puranut, one sad thing, to another sad thing. What's the first sad thing? The Bnei Yisrael left Har Sinai happily. What's the other sad thing? The Mitoninim, like Rabbi Lander talked about. So, in addition to just separating between the two, I think that part of the lesson is that that's how you deal with these Puraniyot. How do you deal with the situation of leaving Har Sinai? V'hi bin Sorah ha'aron. You have to know that in the middle of everything is the Aron. The same masa'ot, the same traveling, the stopping and the starting has to be bracketed with, has to be internalized with v'hi bin Sorah ha'aron. When the Aron is traveling, you have to remember your focus is the Aron, is the Torah. We have Torah for us. That gives us, first of all, a grounding. Wherever we go, wherever stages we go, even after Matan Torah, even we move on to something we'll call, let's say, regular life, daily life, we have to have that Torah with us. In addition, before that, the Torah tells us about the Chatzotzrot, Al Pi Hashem Yahanu, Al Pi Hashem Yisau. Before that, the Torah tells us about every day. Sometimes they would go for a month, sometimes for a day, for 5 days, for a year. Al Pi Hashem Yahanu, Al Pi Hashem Yisau. The Yisod is, the fundamental rule is, Al Pi Hashem Yahanu, Al Pi Hashem Yisau. You're leaving the Har Sinai, you're leaving the Matan Torah, go with Hashem. Hashem is going to lead you, Hashem is going to tell you what to do, follow what Hashem says. The Ramban writes that the reason the Torah enumerates all the different times that it was that they were traveling, because they always had to follow Hashem. Even if it wasn't comfortable, it wasn't what they really wanted to do, Hashem says to go, we go. So this lesson, these lessons of Ibn Sorah Ha'aron, the Torah, and Al Pi Hashem in general, Hashem tells us what to do, we follow what Hashem does, what Hashem tells us what to do in every aspect of our life, even we move beyond Matan Torah. I think that can explain why the introduction to the parasha is Menorah. What's the menorah? Rav Hirsch writes, whereas the Aron with the Luchot is the Torah itself, the Chokhmah of the Torah itself, hidden in the Kodesh HaKodashim to some level. The menorah is the light, is the illumination of the Torah outside of the Kodesh HaKodashim into the Kodesh, taking the light of the Torah and expanding it and bringing it to life in our lives. So the menorah is exactly that. It's setting the stage for when we leave Matan Torah, we have to move back into everyday life. We have to move back into Masa'ot, Mahanot, moving from one camp to the next, going through life. The menorah is there to illuminate us. The menorah is there to tell us, take the light of the Torah and apply it. Put it into your life. Put it into practice. Amichai writes, the Pasuk says, V'zeh ma'aseh ha-menorah, mikshah zahav. This is the ma'aseh, the action of the menorah. What's ma'aseh ha-menorah? The Torah is telling us the menorah, the key to the menorah is ma'aseh. Not just the limud ha-Torah, not just learning the Torah, but ma'aseh, putting into action, actually putting into your life, living your life with Torah. So I think that's number one where the menorah is doing in the parasha. The introduction to the parasha, it really is sort of setting the stage, setting the tone for this parasha, which is our transition from Matan Torah to the rest of life. And really, if you look in the parasha further, there's more to learn about how to comport ourselves in this stage of after Matan Torah. The Torah tells, like I said before, the Torah says sometimes it was a day, sometimes it was a week, sometimes it was a month, and it was always Al Pi Hashem Yahanu. The Ramban, like I said, says that even though it was hard for them, the Or Chaim says, even though they might have not wanted to stay a certain place or go to a certain place, they did it because Hashem said so, and they followed whatever Hashem says. Rabbi Yerucham Lubavitz writes, he says you have to, imagine to yourself. Imagine if somebody would tell you, okay, today you're leaving. That's it now. In 2 minutes, we got to go. Pack up everything. I want to stay here a little bit. I get all my stuff together. Sorry, got to go. Okay? And then you get somewhere, and then, okay, you're ready to, you're antsy to go somewhere else. No, you're going to stay here for 3 years. Hashem says, whatever Hashem says, we like it, we don't like it, we enjoy it, we don't enjoy it. Hashem says it, we know that's the right way to go. Al Pi Hashem Yahanu, Al Pi Hashem Yisau. The Chatzotzrot, the Torah tells us, part of the way that they travel was the Chatzotzrot, the trumpets. And the interesting thing is, the Torah tells us not just what the trumpets were for, but how they were blown. And specifically, for traveling, the Chatzotzrot were to Tiga'at Tru'at Tkiyah. You had a Tru'ah. Tru'ah Yitkeu l'maseh. When you travel, Yitkeu. They have a Tru'ah. Tru'ah Yitkeu l'maseh. They would have a Tru'ah. What's a Tru'ah? The Ben Ish Chai in Parashat Nitzavim, when he talks about Rosh Hashanah, Ben Ish Chai says that there's a symbolism in blowing the shofar. Tkiyah Tru'ah Tkiyah. Tkiyah is a full blast. Tru'ah is broken and then a full. Because the Ben Ish Chai says sometimes life goes smooth and easy, but sometimes there are breaks, sometimes there are bumps along the way. When you travel, you move from one stage to the next, one day to the next. We see the Mitoninim, Das Safsuf. Bnei Yisrael had travels when they went through the desert, through the Midbar. And Hashem says, don't worry. Like the Ben Ish Chai writes over there, it's always Tkiyah, Tru'ah, Tkiyah. There's a tchiyah at the beginning, there's a tchiyah at the end. There's going to be truot in the middle, unfortunately, that's going to happen. But there's always going to be, Hashem says tchiyah, there'll be a tchiyah at the end, there'll be shalva at the end, there'll be simcha at the end. Hashem will take care of us. Al pi Hashem yahanu, v'al pi Hashem yisau. Every stage along the way, Hashem is there. Hashem is taking care. And I think, just for our lives, if we want to take this idea of post-Matan Torah, number one, this time of year, we've gone through a lot of times of year throughout these months. This time of year is really post-Matan Torah. We had Pesach, we had the Zman Chirutenu, we had Shvirat HaOmer, Shavuot, Matan Toratenu, and now we're post-Matan Torah. Now we're in the stage where, okay, we have 3 weeks coming up, we have Rosh Hashanah, but for post-Matan Torah, we have now the challenge of taking all that inspiration that we had from Pesach, Shvirat HaOmer, Shavuot, and actualizing it. One of the Ashkenazim have minhag to read Pirkei Avot during the summer as well, and the Farshim explain, because this time of year is alul avirot. Sometimes people do the wrong thing because they've already, it's the anticlimax. They had the Matan Torah, and now things are not as inspirational anymore. The Bnei Yisrael left Har Sinai, and the Mitonanim, the Asaf Suf, they had troubles. It wasn't so simple. Life wasn't so simple when you got down to the nitty gritty. So number one, inspiration for us, or something we can focus on for this time of the year, is Al Pi Hashem Yahanu Al Pi Hashem Yisau. Whatever we do, Al Pi Hashem. Hashem tells us what to do. Follow the word of Hashem. Vayibn Soah Ha'aron. Furthermore, I think for a lot of us, and I'll say, Rabbi Lander spoke about Yisrael Amichai back in yeshiva. I could tell you I knew Yisrael Amichai really in this stage of life, which is for many of us the post-Matan Torah stage of life, if you want to put it that way. We go through yeshivot, Bezrat Hashem, Baruch Hashem, we have many yeshivot. We go many years of yeshivot, post-high school, Beit Midrash, etc., some kolim, whatever a person might be. But at some point, many of us go to beyond that stage, where our day-to-day is not necessarily in yeshivot. Our day-to-day, we go as much as we can, and we put as much as kiviyat tetim in the Torah, but our day-to-day is regular life. Our day-to-day is the masaot and mahanot, the trials and tribulations of masaot and mahanot. Everything one day to the next. We don't know what's going to be. We don't know how it's going to work out. Not everything as goes to plan. But again, al pi Hashem yahanu ve'al pi Hashem yisau. We have to know wherever we're going. If it's yomayim, chodesh, yamim, the pasuk says, whether they stayed for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year, Hashem is always the one who's orchestrating it. Hashem is always the one who's setting the plan. And when we travel, when we stop, when we have a rest, when we keep on going, all of that throughout our stage of life also we should keep in mind is Al Pi Hashem, and keep that in our internal processes. And I think, of course, this is the end of the 12 months of Avilut. Avilut, if anything, is a process that's not a linear process. It's Yesh Yomayim, Yesh Chodesh, Yesh Yom. Sometimes a year, sometimes a month, each day by day. Some days are easier, some days are harder. And Hashem gave support to everybody, gives support to everybody in the past, in the present, in the future. Hashem will, Be'ezrat Hashem, give everybody the support to be strong, to be strengthened, and really to take the inspiration. I mentioned this before. Yisrael Amichai told me a few times when he was not well that he felt that people didn't always appreciate everything that they had, every moment that they had, every little mitzvah that they had. And this is our charge, I think, is to take these lessons to heart. Al Pi Hashem Yahanu ve'al Pi Hashem Yisau. Things are sometimes easy, sometimes hard, in many different situations. Not just Avilut, many situations a person has. And a person should try, all try as much as possible to internalize this. Ibn Soah Ha'aron, wherever we are, there's in the Soah Ha'aron, the Aron comes with us, it leaves with us, it rests with us. And that should be a strength to us, it should be a chizuk to us to increase our limuda Torah, shemirat Torah, yirat shamayim, and that should all be an aliyah for the neshama of Yisrael Amichai.
When Amichai was ill, I had the hope of possibly sitting down and learning Masechta with him, and finishing Masechta with him as he was at home, and I would come and be with him. Unfortunately, that never came to fruition. However, the same Masechta that I brought him this farm for, we were going to do Sotah. The same Masechta, my son Yosef has had the zchut to finish this year, and in yeshiva, he's going to make a siyum, the Yidui Nishmat his uncle.
In the last Mishnah in Masechet Sotah, it lists certain qualities that were lost after certain Rabbanim passed away. Mishemis Rabbi, and when Rabbi died, Bata Anava V'Yiraschei, and humility and fear of Averos was lost. Amar Le Rava, Rav Yosef said to Atana, Lo Tisni Anava, don't say that Anava was lost. Dika no, because I am still here and I am humble. Amar Le Rav Nachman, Latana Rav Nachman said to Atana, Lo Tisni Yiraschei, don't say that fear of Averos was lost because Dika no, because I'm still here and I have fear of Averos. Hadran Allah, Ega Roof of Aslikar Allah, Masechet Sotah. Hadran Allah, Masechet Sotah, Hadran Allah, Daitan Allah, Masechet Sotah, Daitan Allah, Learn Nishem, Masechet Sotah, Learn Nishem Minan, Loba Mahadin, Loba Mahadate. Hadran Allah, Masechet Sotah, Hadran Allah, Daitan Allah, Masechet Sotah, Daitan Allah, Learn Nishem, Masechet Sotah, Learn Nishem Minan, Loba Mahadin, Loba Mahadate. Hadran Allah, Masechet Sotah, Daitan Allah, Daitan Allah, Masechet Sotah, Daitan Allah, Learn Nishem Minan, Masechet Sotah, Learn Nishem Minan, Loba Mahadin, Loba Mahadate. Here it's some of Vanecha, Adonai Eloheinu Le'elatenu, Shetehi Toratcha, Emunatenu, Olam Hazeh, Utehei Manu, Olam Haba, Chanina Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Nachman Bar Papa, Achai Bar Papa, Abba Mari Bar Papa, Rafim Bar Papa, Rachash Bar Papa, Surcha Bar Papa, Ada Bar Papa, Dar Bar Papa. Harevna, Adonai Eloheinu, Etivei Toratcha, Finu Fiyot Amcha Beit Yisrael, V'niyeh Kulanu, V'nacham V'tziteinu, V'tzitei, Amcha Beit Yisrael, Kulanu, V'dei Shemecha, V'lamdim Tortecha. Moivetecha Kmeni, Tortecha Kilolam, Hili Bi, Tamim Mechukecha, Laman Levosh, Lolam Lashkak, Picodecha, Kibam Kritani, Baruchata, Adonai Lamdini Chukecha, Amen, Salav Ed. Wadim Anachnu Lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu Le'elatenu, Shesam Techokenu Mioshvei, Beit HaMidrash, Losam Techokenu Mioshvei Karnot. Shanu Mashkimim, Vehem Mashkimim, Anu Mashkimim, Ledvei Torah, Vehem Mashkimim, Ledvei Matelim, Anu Amelim, Vehem Amelim, Anu Amelim, Mukabim Sachar, Vehem Amelim, Vehem Mukabim Sachar, Anu Aratzim, Vehem Aratzim, Anu Aratzim, L'chayim Avala, Vehem Aratzim, Lever Shechat, Shanam Avatat, Elohim Tordim, Lever Shechat, Anshe Damim, Mimah, Lo Yechatsu Yimehem, Vaniach Tachbach. Here it's Omer Fanecha, Adonai Eloheinu, Kushem, Sheaz Artani, Nisayim Mesechet Sotah, Kenta Azrinu, L'hatchil, Mesechtot, Usvarim Acherim, L'sayimam, L'ilmod, L'lamei Lishma, L'lasot, L'kayim, L'kol Devrei, Talmud Torah Techa Ba'ava, Zchut Kol Tanaim, V'amoraim, V'tamidich Chachamim, Yamur Li, L'zari Shalo, Yamusha, Atorah Mipi, Zari, Zari, Adolam, V'titkayim, Bi, V'talecha, Tanachel, L'tach, V'shach V'chad, Shmor Alecha, V'hakitzota, Ki Tishlichecha, Ki Yirbu Yemecha, V'siv L'cha Shanot, Chayim, Orach, Yavim, Minavi Yismola, Osher Chavor, Adonai, Uzimetan, Adonai, V'rech, Shalom.
So just to elaborate on something that Yosef mentioned, and to add just a short idea, very not well prepared, or hopefully a little bit more well presented than prepared. We're going to be passing out the Tehillim and Mishnayot that we've been saying for the past 12 months, that we'll be saying in Hashem, Mashiach should come very soon, but we would say on the Yom side as well, on the Yom HaZikaron, the Azkara, the Yisrael Amichai, the words and the Mishnayot and the Limud and the Psukim are those that come out to be his name, Yisrael Amichai, and then the words Neshama, the other Mishnayot. We're going to divide it up amongst men and the women. You can follow. The first page has the pages of the letters of the name. Each one you say it in that order for the men in order to get through the entire limud of the Mishnayot and the Zohar and everything like that. We're going to try and divide it up. But before we do that, I just wanted to say something about the end of the Masechet Sotah that that Yosef finished and that I had learned with him small part of it, and I wanted to borrow from the end of the Masechta just to relate the Mishnayot, the Mishnah that ends Masechet Sotah goes through a series of many different qualities that were lost, as Yosef said, when the Amoraim and the Tanaim, when certain specific Tanaim were niftar. It goes through different ones, what they lost, what was lost when they passed. It says when Rabbi Meir passed, the Mishnah says, Batlu Moshlei Mashalim. Those that wrote the parables and give the examples, because Rabbi Meir had wonderful, fantastical parables and examples using animals. But when it says Mishamet Ben Azai left. He left his marriage in order to really go ahead and learn Torah. Badlu Shakdanim, those who are very into the learning, passed. Mishamet Ben Zoma, Badlu Darshanim. When Ben Zoma passed, the Darshanim ended. Each of these qualities, when it says Rabbi Akiva passed, Kavod Torah passed, there's another, Rabbi Chanina Ben Dosa, it goes on to say Anshe Ma'isa, and then it goes on to many, many other different qualities. The end of the Masechta that Yosef related said two qualities when Rabbi Kadosh passed: Yirat Chet and Anava, modesty and the fear of Chet. And yet we see that by all the other qualities that passed when one of the Amoraim, one of the Tanaim moved along to Olam Haba, it doesn't say that anybody took up the gauntlet and said, "Oh no, wait 1 second. I'm here, this is still here." Except for the qualities of Yirat Chet and Anava. And I think that's very telling, and I think it's something as a message that I wanted to impart to, first of all, my nephews and nieces, my own children, and to all of you, that seeing a person such as my dear brother Yisrael Amichai ben Sara, who has passed on to Olam Haba with the Tanaim and the Amoraim and the Tzadikim, that there's still something that we can take up of what he was like. He had many, many special qualities. The qualities that we see that we can take up when somebody passes on is their Yirat Chet and the Anava. Each of these Tanaim, yes, Rav Nachman said Yirat Chet, and Rabbi Yosef said the Anava. Each one of them picked one of those qualities, but what we can do to keep that person with us, we can go ahead and keep those qualities going, is to emulate those qualities. And that's, I think, what they were saying. They were saying, Rabbi HaKadosh, our Rebbe died. What do we do to keep him with us? It's Ana. I'm here. The responsibility now falls on each and every one of us. What am I going to do? What am I going to do to perpetuate Yisrael Amichai's memory? And I think what the Gemara is telling us at the end of Sotah is to say, don't give up hope. People do pass on to Olam HaEmet, but there's something that we can do while we're still here to keep that memory alive. And I think with Yisrael Amichai, it's most important, as Rabbi Lander said, his tefillah, his yirat shamayim, his anava. I'm sure everybody here, I don't need to go ahead and belabor the point of anava, both internally and externally, was something to be seen, something of an example that we can all take. So whether or not children and all of us, you choose to emulate your father's yirat shamayim, yirat chet, or his anava, his modesty, so then do so, pick one of those qualities, and continue. I'll end with one story, since everybody related something that they knew of Yisrael Amichai. I'll go ahead and relate in terms of Yirat Chet, his Anava, just as a little boy, a story from then, which most of you, I don't think except for Yafa, can go ahead and my parents can relate to. A story of him then, and just to keep memory alive in that vein. Yisrael Amichai at the time of his bar mitzvah, and we had the zchut almost a year ago, the Bel D'Malchaim L'Chaim of celebrating Yaakov's bar mitzvah, and only 6 months ago celebrating Yosef's bar mitzvah, at which his father was present. The neshama was here with us at the time of smachot. Like in every simcha, the neshama is present. I recall from when he became bar mitzvah, it was actually in this shul, in this hall. He spoke, well, from a slightly different looking shul at that time. And I don't remember what he said. The point is that at that time when he became bar mitzvah, going to yeshiva, putting on the levush of a yeshiva bacher, putting on a hat and a jacket, having a tzitzit out, as some Sfaradim do, some of us don't. His pride in that yirat chet, in that showing of being a Charedi, a person who fears HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his actions, in his dress, in his being, in his soul and heart, was something that he was very proud of. It says in Anava we're supposed to go ahead and have modesty, both on the outside and on the inside. But by HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have Anava, not on the outside. Because it says, we say in the Pasuk, Erev Shabbat, Hashem Malach Ge'ut Lavesh. Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the king, and he wears with pride the Malchus. We have to wear with pride that Malchut, and that's what that Malchut that we emulate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu of being a Ben Torah. That Amichai did with pride, and Baruch Hashem, his nephews and his son, and Hashem, all of his children do, in the way they dress modestly, in the way they dress nicely, and keep their hair and all their other looks within the bounds of Yahadut, and that is something to be proud of. That's the outside, but on the inside, it's the anava, it's the humbleness of knowing our place as being Avdei Hashem, as it says in the parasha yesterday that Moshe was a Nav Mikol Adam because he was an Eved Hashem. What keeps us to be modest people, what keeps us to be simple and humble in our hearts is to realize that we're always Avadim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's something we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's something that we learned from Yisrael Amichai, that he realized that he was always an Eved HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With that, I'm sorry for taking your time and sharing that memory, but I just thought it would be good to impart to nephews and nieces that are still sitting in the room. And we're going to do the last thing, is going to endeavor to write a Sefer Torah, L'Zecher Nishmat, L'Yilui Nishmat, Yisrael Amichai ben Sara. It's a difficult thing to go do as an individual family, but we would like very much to ask the participation and the help of our friends here. And I would like to thank all of you as friends for, number one, supporting us through this time. And Imitz Hashem, if there's any way that you can support us going forward in helping us try and accomplish this task of writing a Sefer Torah, L'Zecher Nishmato. And the second item is that although this is the Azkara, the Sof Yud Bet Chodesh, I would like everybody to sort of keep your ear to the ground. In a month there will be as we say, Yort site. So my family will be in Eretz Yisrael, and for those that are here, we will be doing something of a Sudah Shlishit, I believe. L'Zecher Nishmat Yisrael Amichai, if you can make it on Shabbat. I know that there are those that cannot make it. I would greatly appreciate your company and your support at that time. One last special thank you. I'm sorry. And I do have to stop for a moment to say this. There is a group of guys from Orach Chaim that and some of them were here, and I know they're not going to be here on Shabbat and the Yortzeit and the day of the Petira, but they were there at the time of the Petira. They were in the hospital. They came as a group of guys, and just let me share this to you if you haven't heard this. It's just something remarkable to fathom, that at the time that Amichai was passing on, or slightly prior to that, if you've heard the story, I'm sorry for repeating it, but at the time, a group of people, first of all from Hatzalah came, they tried to come into the room and they said, "No, you're medical professionals, you got to get out." And at that time it wasn't allowed, they couldn't come in, but the group from Orach Chaim of his Chaverim came into the room, And they had been singing, he had just put on tefillin, just daven shacharit, and they were singing while the medical staff was attempting to work on Amichai. And that is a surreal image that I will bear forever, and I thank you very much for it, because I know that the fact that they were singing the Shirot and Tishbachot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't remember exactly what you were singing, but I know that that always gave comfort to Yisrael Amichai. So thank you very much to all of you. We're going to the vinyl.
I know that it is a fat lady thing, so I had to say my last word as a father. I can't believe it's a year. All my friends who have seen me through the year and before when Amichai was sick thought that I probably got off my rock here and never got emotional. Well, right now I'm emotional. He was a very special boy, very special man, very special son, and a husband and a father to everybody. But since I came from a Persian family, and my father and my mother used to say, first of all, never let us see a death of a child. Well, it's happened to me, unfortunately. But they also had another saying that when we go, do your duties, and afterward, get up, sing, and dance. I said to him for years, Abba, what do you mean by that? He says, don't mourn for too long. It's not nice. This is Maaseh Adam Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem Natan, Hashem Lakach. We had a big honor, big honor having Amichai for 41 years. It was an unbelievable life. I'm sure, and I don't mean to get anybody upset, all my mission up here is to tell you the following. Do as my father said, the year has passed, we did all our duties, we tried very hard, but now let's get up, sing and dance, which means let's go on with life, and we should have a lot of smachot, a lot of happiness. And one thing is, many people telling me, Amichai is alive. I'm not crazy, but for all the things that the children and the sons do, you can see it. Maybe you're not familiar with that, but we are. We see it. They're really doing all the things that Amichai wanted to do. And I'm telling you as a public, as a friend, when you're going out there in life, make sure you love and care for everybody. Kol Am Yisrael. Be well.